I've spilled coffee on better people than you.
What the hell? You did that on purpose!
I've spilled coffee on better people than you. What the hell? You did that on purpose. Of course I did. You're welcome. You're insane. I'm reporting you. She poured that coffee on purpose. She didn't spill it. She poured it right onto his lap in front of everyone on that plane, and she smiled while she did it. The Atlanta airport was loud in the way airports always are. Announcements bleeding into each other. Wheels dragging across tile. A kid somewhere crying. Someone else laughing too hard at something on their phone. Nobody paid attention to anybody. That's what Nathan thought as he walked through the terminal doors. Quiet, unhurried, a single backpack over one shoulder worn at the straps. Dark jeans, a plain white tee that had seen better days, sneakers that were clean but not new. He didn't look left, didn't look right. He moved like someone who had nothing to prove. That's the thing about Nathan. He never looked like what he was. He found his boarding gate, sat down in a corner seat, and pulled out nothing. No laptop, no AirPods, no status signal of any kind. Just a guy sitting still, watching the room the way someone watches a movie they've already seen. A woman 2 seats over glanced at him. Then away. Then back again, with the kind of look that wasn't curious. It was measuring. Her name was Sandra, flight attendant. Full uniform, posture so precise it looked rehearsed. She was talking to a colleague, but her eyes kept drifting toward Nathan like he was something out of place, something that didn't belong in the frame. She leaned in toward the other attendant and said something low. Her colleague, a younger woman named Maya, didn't respond. Just looked at the floor. Boarding started. Nathan was one of the last to get up. The plane was a standard domestic flight, 2x3 seating, full cabin, the kind of route where people eat chips and watch Netflix and don't talk to strangers. Nathan settled into seat 24C. He put his backpack in the overhead bin, sat down, and looked out across the cabin like he was thinking about something far away. Sandra was working the aisle. She smiled at the man in 22A. Called the woman in 23B sweetie. Handed a kid in 25A a pair of wings because that's what flight attendants do for kids, and the mom smiled so wide you'd think she'd been given something real. She passed Nathan without a word. Not even eye contact. He didn't react. A man across the aisle saw it happen. He raised his eyebrows just slightly, then looked back at his phone. Maya came through a few minutes later with water. She noticed immediately. Everyone had a bottle except the guy in 24C. She pulled one from her cart without hesitation and held it toward him. Here you go. Nathan looked up. There was a pause, not awkward, just real, like he wasn't used to small kindness and was registering it honestly. Thank you, he said. Maya smiled. Let me know if you need anything. She kept moving, but she felt something. Some low, unresolved note, and she didn't know yet what to do with it. Somewhere over Tennessee, Sandra came back through with beverages. She handed a ginger ale to the man in 22A, a Sprite to the woman in 23B, a juice to the family in 25A. When she reached Nathan, she tilted the tray. Not much, not dramatically. Just enough. And the cup of coffee she'd been carrying slid forward and came down on his lap. Hot. Fast. Spreading. Nathan's jaw tightened slightly. That was the only sign. Sandra said, "Oops." One word. Flat. No follow-through. The man across the aisle looked over, said nothing. But the corner of his mouth moved. Someone a few rows back snickered. Not loud. Just enough. Nathan reached down and blotted his jeans with the thin napkin that had come with nothing. He didn't say a word, didn't look up. Sandra was already moving on. But Maya had seen it. She'd been standing at the rear galley holding a stack of cups, and she'd watched the whole thing. The angle of the tray. The timing. The way Sandra's hand had moved. She set the cups down slowly. That wasn't an accident. She walked up the aisle to where Nathan was sitting and crouched beside him. "I'm really sorry about that," she said quietly. "Can I get you something? Club soda? Anything?" Nathan looked at her for a moment. "I'm fine. I want to help." "I know." A pause. "That's the difference." Maya didn't fully understand what he meant, but it stayed with her. 30 minutes later, Sandra picked up the intercom. Nobody expected it. The cabin went quiet the way it does when something about an announcement sounds different from the routine ones. Sandra's voice came through smooth and practiced. "Just a quick observation from your crew today." She paused like a comedian waiting for the room to settle. Sometimes people board a flight thinking it gives them a certain status. Like the altitude changes who they are. A few people laughed. "We see it all the time." Most of the cabin didn't know who she was talking about, but some did. And the ones who did looked toward seat 24C. Nathan was looking out the window. Not away, not hiding. Just outside of it, like the whole thing was weather, like it would pass. Maya was standing near the galley curtain. Her hand was on the fabric. "Don't," she said it out loud. One word toward Sandra. Just loud enough. Sandra lowered the intercom. But as she walked past Nathan's row, she leaned down close, quiet, like a secret, and said, "By the time we land, you'll know exactly where you stand." Nathan turned from the window. He looked at her for the first time, fully. Not angry, not wounded. Just clear. "Sometimes what looks like nothing is everything," he said. "You'll understand that soon." Sandra straightened up, laughed once, short and dismissive. She walked to the back. The descent announcement came. Seat belts, tray tables, the familiar mechanical language of arrival. Nathan didn't move toward the overhead bin early, didn't jostle for position. He waited until the aisle cleared, then stood, pulled his backpack down in one motion, and walked toward the front of the plane. Maya was at the door. She looked at him as he passed. "Whatever just happened in there," she said, "I want you to know I didn't think it was right." Nathan stopped. He looked at her directly. "You didn't just think it," he said. "You said it out loud when it was easier not to." She shook her head. "I didn't say enough." "You said it once." He paused. "That's more than most people manage." He stepped off the plane. The Atlanta jetway opened into a wide terminal corridor. Nathan walked out and 6 people were standing there waiting for him. Not family, not friends. Men and women in dark suits, hands folded, eyes forward. And beside them, 2 senior executives from Skyspan Airlines. Lanyards visible, posture rigid, faces carrying the particular tension of people who have prepared for a moment they didn't know how to prepare for. One of them stepped forward. "Mr. Nathan Reeves." The man's voice was careful. Formal. He extended his hand. "Welcome back to Atlanta, sir. Everything's ready." The corridor was busy. People moved around them, but several stopped. Not because of the suits. Because of something else. Something in the arrangement of it all. The way these people stood when he walked out. Sandra came through the door 10 seconds later. She saw it immediately. Her carry-on stopped rolling. Her face changed, not quickly, but completely. The way ice doesn't look like it's cracking until it already has. She recognized one of the executives. Had seen him at company briefings. Had shaken his hand once at a staff event and smiled for a photo. He was the regional VP of operations for Skyspan Airlines, and he was bowing his head to the man in the coffee-stained jeans. Maya came through the door behind her. She saw it too. She didn't move. Nathan shook hands with the executives. He didn't perform it. Didn't make it a show. He just was. One of the men in suits leaned toward him and said something quietly. Nathan nodded. Then he turned and looked back at the door. Sandra was standing frozen at the edge of the corridor. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned back to the executive team and said simply, "Can you bring the full cabin crew out here?" It took 4 minutes. Sandra, Maya, 2 other crew members who had been on that flight. They stood in a loose line in the corridor. Other travelers had slowed. Some stopped entirely. There's something about a reckoning that's impossible to look away from, even when you don't know what it is. Nathan stood in front of them. Backpack still on. Coffee stains still on his jeans. He spoke quietly. 3 months ago, I started traveling incognito on our own routes. He paused. Not to catch anyone doing something wrong. Just to understand what it actually felt like to be one of our passengers. What the experience really was. Whether the company I built still matched what I wanted it to be. Silence. Today, he said, I have my answer. His eyes moved to Sandra. She couldn't hold his gaze. She tried. She failed. I sat in coach, he said. Plain clothes, nothing to identify me. And before we were over the state line, I had been deliberately ignored, publicly mocked over the intercom, and had hot coffee poured on me. He let that sit. Not spilled. Poured. Sandra's mouth opened. I know, he said. I was there. Her eyes were filling, but he didn't soften. The passengers on that flight paid for a seat on an airline I own. They deserve to be treated like human beings, regardless of what they're wearing, regardless of whether they look important. He paused. Especially when they don't look important. That's when character shows. He looked at Sandra directly, fully. Sandra, effective now. Your employment with Skyspan is terminated. The executive team has your separation paperwork. The sound that came from her was small, like something inside her gave out. Please, she said. Her voice broke clean down the middle. Please, one chance. I'll fix it. Nathan's voice didn't rise, didn't harden. Just stayed level. You had chances, he said. On the water. On the napkin. On the intercom. When you walked past her. He paused. You made choices each time. Every single one. Sandra put her hand over her mouth. Nathan turned to Maya. She was standing still. Not crying, not performing composure. Just present, the way someone is when they've done what they could and know it. You offered water when no one asked you to, he said. You apologized for something that wasn't your fault. You said don't to someone who outranked you, out loud, in front of passengers. A pause. And on the way out, you told a stranger you didn't think it was right. Not after. Not in private. Right there. Maya didn't say anything. That's not a small thing, Nathan said. Most people decide it's too complicated, too risky, not worth it. He looked at her steadily. You decided different. He glanced at the VP beside him. Maya moves into cabin crew leadership. Full compensation adjustment. Immediate. He looked back at her. You'll help us figure out what this is supposed to feel like from the inside. Maya exhaled. Not a sound. Just the body releasing something it had been holding. Thank you, she said. It came out barely above a whisper. Nathan shook his head. Thank you, he said. That's not nothing. Don't let anyone tell you it is. He walked away from the corridor. The executives fell in beside him. Travelers who'd stopped watching started moving again slowly, like people leaving a film they weren't sure they understood but couldn't stop thinking about. Sandra stood where she was for a long time. The terminal moved around her, everyone going somewhere, everyone with a direction, and she was just still. Her rolling bag beside her. Her uniform suddenly feeling like a costume she'd borrowed from someone she didn't know anymore. 3 weeks later, Maya stood at the front of a briefing room on the 4th floor of Skyspan's Atlanta headquarters. 12 new cabin crew hires sat in rows in front of her. Notebooks open. Some nervous, some eager. She had notes. She didn't look at them. "The job is straightforward," she said. "You'll be in the air with hundreds of people every day. Some of them will be easy. Some of them won't be. Some of them will look like they belong there, and some of them won't." She paused. "The ones who don't look like they belong. They're watching to see what you do. Not because they want to catch you. Because they've been caught before, and they're waiting to find out if this time is different." The room was quiet. Treat everyone the same. She let it land. That's the whole job. 2 floors above, Nathan was at his desk. He was on a call. Something about expansion, new routes, a partnership in the southeast. The kind of call that should have had his full attention. But his eyes kept drifting. On the corner of his desk, folded and slightly wrinkled, was the paper napkin from Flight 1147. The one he'd used to blot the coffee. He didn't know why he'd kept it. He thought he did, but he wasn't sure. He ended the call, sat back. The city stretched out through the window behind him. Atlanta, wide and hazy and full of motion. Planes arcing up into the distance. Every one of them carrying people who didn't know his name, didn't care what his name was, just wanted to get where they were going and feel okay while they did it. That was it. That was the whole thing. He looked at the napkin. Then he picked up the phone and called downstairs. "Can you ask Maya if she has 15 minutes? She came up, knocked twice, opened the door." "You wanted to see me?" "Yeah." He gestured to the chair across the desk. "Sit down. Tell me how the training went." She sat. Told him. He listened. Actually listened. Not in the way executives listen while they're thinking about something else. Like he was taking notes in his head. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. "Was it hard?" he asked. Talking to a room full of people about something that personal. She thought about it honestly. A little. But not because of what happened. She paused. "Because I kept thinking about the people on that flight who saw it and didn't say anything. And I kept wondering if I would have been one of them. If I'd been further away. If I'd been less sure." Nathan looked at her. "Would you have been?" She met his eyes. "No," she said. "I don't think so." He nodded slowly. "Neither do I." They didn't talk about anything except work that day. But something had shifted. The quiet way things shift when two people have already said the important thing and neither one needs to repeat it. 4 months later, Skyspan held its annual company event. Ballroom, 1,200 people, open bar, speeches from people who were used to giving them. Nathan was on stage. He talked about the year. Numbers, growth, some of the challenges, the things they got right and the things they didn't. The room was warm, comfortable, attentive. Then he stopped mid-sentence. Not dramatically, not staged. He just stopped, like he'd been going to say one thing and then decided to say something true instead. "I want to tell you all something," he said, "about a flight and a napkin and a woman who said, 'Don't,' when she didn't have to." The room shifted. The comfortable posture changed to something more awake. He told the story. Not the version with the executive reveal and the corridor of suits. He told the version from seat 24C. The water that didn't come. The intercom. The hot coffee. The napkin. He told it plainly, without drama, without making himself the hero of it. I built this company, he said, from 3 planes and a credit card and a lot of nights I don't talk about. He paused. And the most important thing I saw in 12 years of building it. I saw it in an airplane aisle, from a flight attendant who didn't know who I was and gave me water anyway. Who said one word when it mattered. Who told me the truth on the way out because it was the right thing to do. He looked at Maya. She was standing at the edge of the room near the back. Who you are when no one important is watching, he said, is who you actually are. That's the thing. There's no other version. He paused. And sometimes the person watching isn't nobody. The room erupted. She didn't move for a moment. Just stood there. Then someone near her started clapping, and she felt it move through the room like something alive. Later, she stood outside on the hotel balcony. The city below, the sky above, a glass of water in her hand because she never much liked champagne. Nathan came out the same door. He stood beside her. Neither of them said anything for a minute. Then he said, "How's it feel?" She thought about it. "Like I've been here before," she said. "But this time, I know it counts." He looked at her. There was something in his face she hadn't seen in a boardroom or a briefing room or a corridor full of suits. Something that was just his. "It always counted," he said quietly. "That's what I've been trying to say." She looked back at the city. He stayed. And the silence between them was the kind that doesn't need filling. The kind that 2 people build slowly without trying, by telling each other the truth over and over, until it becomes the only language they know. Some people go their whole lives performing for the wrong audience. Sandra never flew again. Maya eventually ran the whole department. And Nathan Reeves, owner of one of the fastest growing regional carriers in the Southeast, still flies coach sometimes. Plain clothes, single backpack. No one knows who he is. That's the point. The people who treat you right when they think you're nobody, those are the only people worth knowing. And the ones who don't, they already told you everything.